Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the show of Feast and Famine. No one else on this time, just me, and I'm just recording this on the weekend because I have nothing better to do, and the allure of deck building has got me firmly in its clutches right now. So, if you saw my Twitter on About Wednesday, you would know that in a little competition I ran last week, the red deck won out over the green deck, so I took it to the standard tournament. And if you were following my Twitter, not just the blog, you probably saw that it did not do amazingly well. So while it's in the shop for tweaking, while it is being tweaked, I'm going to be working on another deck to take to the standard tournament this week if I go. If you want to know about how amazingly I lost at the tournament with the red deck, that will probably be up as an article on the blog, actually probably attached to this show. It was pretty amusing in its utter failingness. So instead of talking about how I magnificently failed there, I'm actually going to talk about the deck that I plan on taking this week, which is one I've actually been building all weekend pretty much. I believe in my original article about the red deck, I mentioned how much I enjoy Infect as a mechanic, because it's fast, and very few people in my tournament area actually use it. Most of them are currently playing Valakut or Cawblade still. Now, if you go on Card Shark, you may have seen an article that I wrote that recently got posted called A Not So Naya, which was about a red-green-white Infect deck I was working on. I've actually cannibalized that to make this deck. From the beginning of this deck, I knew I was obviously going to have green in it, because one of the best ways to win with Infect is to hit hard and fast, and the best way to do that is with a Glistener Elf. It's a 1-drop for 1 green, and by turn 2, if you're lucky, you can play out your second Glistener Elf, and maybe even attack and Giant Growth with your first one. The only problem that green has in an Infect deck is that it doesn't have very much proliferation. Pretty much the only thing it has is the Plague Maw Beast, which requires that you sacrifice a creature, which you usually don't want to be doing with an Infect deck. So I knew I needed to have another color. In this case, I went with black. Black provides what is honestly the most important part of this deck, and that is 2 Hand of the Praetors. Each one of these is a very simple, I believe it's a 3/2 bird zombie for 4 mana. The bonuses that it gives, though, are astronomical. All of your Infect creatures get +1/+1 just because the Hand of the Praetors is on the battlefield. But if you happen to, say, play an Infect creature, like you probably want to do at least once every freaking turn, the Hand of the Praetor gives your opponent 1 poison counter for every single one you play. Now, as amazing as the Hand of the Praetors are, they can't win the entire game for you. You have to run some other Infect creatures. Now, from black, I took the Plague Stinger because it's a 1/1 with flying and Infect, and it can take out a Squadron Hawk in 1 shot, so there's a good deal for you. The other thing that black gave me as a bonus was Reaper of Shieldred. Now, this is, I believe it's an uncommon that not many people use. In fact, I'm only running 1 in this deck. But it's an Infect creature with 2 power and 5 toughness, and no matter what, if you attack with it, you're going to do a poison counter, because if it hits, you do 2 poison counters. If your opponent blocks it, they take a poison counter. Its special ability is that if it takes damage, the opponent who dealt it damage takes a poison counter. So it's really good in this deck. Of course, since black is in the deck, and it's an Infect deck, I have to have a Phyrexian Vatmother, which in this case is especially amazing since no one I play against is going to be using Infect. For some reason, no one at my store likes it. And the other very, very obvious thing that I have to take is a Phyrexian Crusader. It has First Strike and Infect. What could possibly be better than that? Well, maybe if it was a 10/10. Now, a lot of the green in this deck is either just a straight-up smashy thing, like the Glistener Elf in this case, or is sort of a utility thing, like I have Rotwolves to get in some extra card draw, I have Blight Widows to take care of flyers, I have a Tangle Angler. Actually, I think the Tangle Angler and the Blight Widow are both in the sideboard right now, to take care of people with, like, a ton of blockers. But the biggest part of the green is actually the Phyrexian Swarmlord. Phyrexian Swarmlords are amazing. You should have been able to hit your opponent for at least a couple of poison counters by the time you can play a 6-cost creature. And every single one of your upkeeps, all those poison counters, you get a 1/1 insect token equal to that however many poison counters you've thrown onto your opponent. Now that may not seem like a lot until you realize that, oh, I have all of these 1/1 insect tokens with Infect. By 2 turns you could have like 16 of the little monsters. Oh, and look here in my hand. I have a Triumph of the Hordes. For only 4 mana, I get to smash into you with a giant army, all with Infect. It's an amazing strategy, and it works so well, and it's so simple. Especially if you do something crazy, like figure out a way to, I don't know, get out 2 Phyrexian Swarmlords at the same time with, say, that enchantment called, is it Doubling Season? The rare in M11. Actually, I may need to get one of those and throw that in there. I didn't think of that strategy at all. Well, now you know. Now, Infect decks may rise and fall based entirely on their creatures, but their non-creature spells are very important, because you always need to have some proliferation in there for when you just can't afford the risk of an attack. In my case, I obviously went for some Contagion Clasps. I would have liked to go for some Contagion Engines, but they're just a bit too expensive, since at the moment, I believe the Phyrexian Swarmlords are actually the most expensive thing in the entire deck, and I can't have something competing for that 6-drop spot, because at 6-drop, I want to be pretty freaking close to killing my opponent. The other proliferation I went for was Grim Affliction, because it's only 3 cost. Unlike Spread the Sickness, which may destroy a creature, you can use Grim Affliction to destroy anything that has 2 toughness or less in 1 turn. Plus you get to throw out that -1/-1 counter, and then proliferate it, i.e. the killing of a 2 toughness or less creature. I also mentioned earlier Giant Growths. Yes, I have Giant Growths in here because it gives a creature +3/+3 on turn 1, which I would take a Titanic Growth because that 1 mana almost makes it worth it, but since one of the best strategies in here is to play Glistener Elf first turn, second turn, play another Glistener Elf, and then play a Giant Growth on the one that doesn't have Summoning Sickness and swing with it, that doesn't work quite so well, because then you wouldn't be able to play that second Glistener Elf, that turn 2 Glistener Elf. Now, I have 2 very odd non-creature spells in here that I don't think many people will see coming. The first of them is Caress of Phyrexia. It's a sorcery for a 5 mana, I believe it's 3 black and 2 colorless, that target player, not opponent, just player, takes 3 poison counters, loses 3 life, and draws 3 cards. This is something that I don't think many people are really going to be expecting, because my intention would obviously be to use it on them. It's cheap. It's cheap for what it does. I mean, 5 mana to do 3 poison counters in a way that no one is expecting. Maybe, sure, it's sorcery speed, but at that point, I hope to have maybe gotten through some of their counter spells and be able to hit them for that whole 3 poison for 1 card. My other oddball card is a little bit more interesting. I have 2 Horizon Spellbombs in here because, 1, they let me get a land from my library, which is always good. The other ability they have is to let me draw a card, and this deck is kind of missing some card draw, which if you read the Not-So-Naya deck, that was one of the biggest problems I had. There was not enough card draw to support the speed that I was trying to function at. This way, I can get, oh look, I have more land to play, and less of a chance of drawing into land when I don't want it, and I get to draw a card whenever I do need it. So, that's the basic idea of the deck. I will explain how well it does or doesn't do after I go to the tournament on Wednesday. Until then, I will leave the deck list and my original script for this, which I did not read at all while doing this, stupid me, down in the description. So, have fun, and I will see you guys later.